When you talk about music, the way you talk about it and the way that I feel it when I listen to it is, as I said before, it just feels like joy. It's this, you know, no matter what's going on in the world, no matter how dark things are, no matter how, you know, difficult, how, you know, what life throws at you. I think what I love about, you know, Latin music is that it just, there's a joy there. There's a happiness and a, you know, celebration of life. Is that something that you feel is part of what, you know, you bring to it and what the music does for people and why it sparks?
Absolutely. There's no doubt. What you're saying is exactly correct. And you know, the thing is that musicians, we as musicians, I mean, first of all, for many years, I took so much for granted. You know, maybe it's my age. I guess once, you know, once you get to a certain age, you go like, wait a minute. And once you pass like a certain age, once you pass 50, you get really in touch with your mortality. You know, you go like, wait a minute here. I can't be taking this for granted. I got to really be keyed in on what I want to do, what I like, what I don't like, what I want to happen in my life, you know. So for me, the fact that we love this music, it makes people dance. So the biggest problem we have, this is what and I give you my thought process so you could get a glimpse into my thought process by telling you certain things. The biggest problem we have with Spanish Harlem Orchestra is we play mostly concert halls. Mm-hmm. And people say, man, but I can't dance. Oh, you know, and they complain. And I go, and I get it. I totally understand it. And by the end of honestly, by the end of the performance, people are up in their seats dancing anyway. At the end, everybody's dancing. It's like going like, wow.
Right.
But at the level that we're doing it, it's a catch-22 situation because there's a whole element of dance people that totally missed the boat as far as I'm concerned. Because I think the dancing part of it trivializes the art form of the music. So when I see people sitting in their seats at a concert hall and appreciating what we're doing, and even though they can't dance, and I know they want to dance, it just, mm-hmm. and it blows up at the end because they can't help themselves. You know what I mean? But right. I want people, even the people who complain, because I've also been at dance events. For instance, they have these salsa congresses. Mm-hmm. I've been at salsa congresses where I can really feel the audience that they couldn't give two about who we are, what we do, except for maybe 100. I've been to the San Francisco Salsa Congress, 3,500 people. If there were 200 people there that really knew who we were or cared about what we do, it's a lot. They're in their own world. Salsa dancing has become a sport. It's not what it was when I grew up.
Right, right.
So, and I have no use for those people. I really don't. Unfortunately, they're oftentimes my own people, Latinos. And I don't want to be taken for granted. I swear to God, I don't want to be taken for granted anymore. I know I spent a lifetime doing what I'm doing. I love what I do. I'm really good at it. There's no ego involved in this at all. I'm pretty clear on, you know, what I'm about. And I want people to understand that and appreciate the concept. And the funny thing is that sometimes the Latinos in the audience, you know, at these places, we're playing in Georgia, we're playing in Denver, we're playing in Colorado Springs, just to name a few places. We're playing in Montreal. They're looking at the other people going like, oh, wow. They're sitting in their seats. And I could tell that at the end of the show, they're like proud to be Latino. They're going, damn, all these white people love this. So.
Right. You know, because, I mean, we're biased, obviously, because we come from this culture and we love, you know, I grew up with the music. And I think the complexity and the intricacy and the craftsmanship of Latin music is, you know, second to none, in my opinion.
Well, when it's done well, because I mean,
Right, of course.
there's some bad music out there, and the other thing that we're battling, Miriam, and I'll be totally honest, is first of all, oftentimes with Spanish Harlem Orchestra, if we had to depend on the Latinos for, you know, to survive, for support, we'd be dead. It's the whole world that's turned on to us, going like, these guys, they're badass. You know, this guy is doing this, he's done this, and there's a level of respect and admiration. So I think sometimes we as Latinos are our own worst enemies. And I always tell the audience, you know, during the course of a concert, I'll say, hay gente que habla en español aquí, right? And then there's always like, you know, yeah. And I go, super. And I tell them in Spanish, quiero que sepan que me alegro que están aquí con ustedes porque es importante tener el apoyo latino presente. And I go on telling them how the importance of them and us being unified and supporting what we do. So it's really gratifying for me to have our own people acknowledge and understand the importance of what we're doing in terms of culturally, you know. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we, our own people, miss the boat. Miami is a perfect place for Miami. Miami, sometimes we just had 2 concerts canceled in Miami. It was kind of sad to see that they didn't happen because of this pandemic. I was very much looking forward to going there. We were playing 2 concert halls in Miami.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's the other issue we have is the point I was trying to make is Spanish Harlem Orchestra is not commercial music.
Right.
And, you know, commercial stations, what they play for the most part is garbage. So we have as people and as Latinos, but as people have to look beyond the commercial bullshit that we're fed to find quality. You know what I mean? Right. It's like,
you know what happens though too, Oscar, is that I think people, you know, because you tend to take for granted the stuff that's familiar to you.
True.
I think Latinos, and partly because we're so obsessed with music and we have it constantly playing, you
that's
know,
true.
The moment you're born, you have the music. And so I think there's an element for Latinos of just taking it for granted, not really seeing it, you know, not putting it into its proper place because, you know, it's like, oh, you know, that's what my grandma used to play, you know, every morning, or, you know, that's what I listen to, you know, every day. So I think that it's very important. The point that you're making is very important, that just because you're used to it, you know, there's no reason to take it for granted. I mean, this is an art form.
It's like, you know, for me, I'll be damned if I'm in Miami and I'm going to go to Starbucks over having a good Cuban coffee, you know, or whatever, or having a croissant over having una medianoche or whatever.
Pastelito de guayaba.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to go to Versailles. I'm going to go to all the restaurants and, you know, and not only that, but support my culture. I'm very, very clear on supporting the culture and what we're about, especially when it's quality. You know what I'm saying? Right. So, but you make a really valid point. There's no doubt about this. And I understand that, you know what I mean? But the truth of the matter is, you still have to, you know, knock people on the head saying, you know, don't take me for granted, you know? Don't take me for granted. Don't take us for granted. Because, I mean, hey, those people that we took for granted, they're no longer here, you know, and if you take it for granted, you don't support it, we're not going to have it, you know?
Exactly. I think that's a great point. That is a great point. Okay, so that just, I don't want to keep you forever because you're being very generous to spend.
I'm happy to do this, girl. I really am. So whatever can help in terms of, as far as Barry and Latino business today, I'm very much for promoting what we're about. I'm very much for also promoting what I'm doing because we still have to keep educating people. I have to educate
Absolutely.
people as to who I am, what I'm doing, how good I am, and, you know, the quality of what I represent. Because I mean, if you're Latino, I'm representing you, And I tell my musicians, wherever we are in the world, we've gone to Russia, we're representing. Estamos representando. So donde
Right.
quiera que vamos, we have to be totally conscious and aware of that. And I'm clear, and at this point, you know, I'm working with musicians, I couldn't do it by myself, who are also clear about the mission, passionate about the mission, and see it. And you know, this is the good thing about, again, Spanish Harlem Orchestra, just to keep using that as an example, is we're playing incredible venues and we're playing really major jazz festivals. And I tell the musicians, and they get it now, but every now and then I have to remind them because, you know, they're younger than me and they forget. So for all those gigs that we were performing when nobody gave a shit who you were, what you were playing, you know, this is not this. This is not that. So please, let's be clear on, you know, what we're doing and how we're impacting every single person. Because if you don't, I've seen, you know, musicians do this. I go to a gig here and they're like, the guy going, looking at his watch. I'm sorry. That's
Right.
that's not me. I don't want to be there, and I don't want to be around musicians who, you know, do that or don't get the whole picture of what we're about. So I'm in a blessed place. I've done this for a long time, and feel really blessed to have the opportunity to keep doing on the level that I'm doing it. Artists Share Records, who represent us, is a great label, known for quality stuff that, you know, top of the heap in terms of integrity. And that's what I represent. So getting back to my point about Latino business today, whatever, you know, you guys, whatever I can do to help the cause would keep expanding the vision, keep expanding what we're about, especially, you know, making people clear on the good things that are out there that, you know, that are being offered that we should be proud of and also support. So I'm in the middle of now with my records coming out tomorrow. I'm doing a bunch of Zoom meetings. I'm doing live Facebook things. I'm contacting people. I'm getting a lot of interview requests. So I tell people all the time, all this is great, but, you know, don't forget about supporting the cause, because, right. I mean, for instance, I'm putting my money where my mouth is in terms of what I do by releasing this record tomorrow. Because I could have chosen to say, well, let me give it some time, let the pandemic pass, let me do it in September or October. No, I said it was planned for this time. I'm going to stick to my guns and let the chips fall where they may, which is something I've
You know
always
what?
felt.
We need this now. We need this music now.
Yeah, I feel that
You know,
way.
this kind of art now. So, and we're gonna need it more as this thing keeps unfolding.
Yeah, and you know, my publicist, when I had this doubt, because I spoke to her, her name is Lydia. I said, Lydia, what do you think? Should I stick to the plan? And she says, you know what, Oscar, I think you should. She helped, you know, I have people that I can use as a sounding board. She says, this might be a great time because there's nobody in the world is concentrating on live performances because there are none. So this might be a good time to do it. So that's where, you know, I'm going ahead with
I
plans.
think, you know what, I think you're totally right. My husband works for New York City Center, which is an arts institution. They do a lot of, they have a lot of acts who come through. And, you know, they don't even know when they're going to be able to reopen.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and venues.
I see things falling off the board even as we speak. First it was April, May, June. Now I'm looking at July, August, September dates that we have. I'm like, it's a shame. It's sad, but
horrible. It's horrible. So I think there's a need for reinvention too for artists and musicians. They need to find a way to get their music out and their work out. And I think people are getting very creative right now about doing that. So, you know, I think it's wonderful that you're releasing this now. You know, I think we need it.
So what made you move to New York in the first place?
Well, I was born in Cuba. We left, went through Spain, ended up in Miami where my parents still live. And I went to school at Columbia in New York City.
Oh,
And
such a great school, isn't it?
it's wonderful. And I fell madly in love with New York. After I got to New York, that was it for me. So I never went back to Miami. I mean, I've gone back, obviously, my parents are there, but I love the city. And, you know,
Yeah.
it's just, and I married a guy from Jersey, and all these years later, my kid was born in New York City. So he's a native New Yorker.
Awesome. Well, I mean, you know, the origins of the music we're playing is Afro-Cuban. So, as you know, and I've gone to Cuba, and there's so much incredible music that comes from that island.
Yeah.
What can I tell you? It's just an amazing place.
Amazing. I
Yeah.
mean, we come from, I tell my son, I mean, his father's a very talented musician too, but I tell him he gets all his musical ability from the Cuban.
Ah, yeah. Well, I mean, Cuba, you kick a tree and 10 piano players fall out, one better than the other. It's like
Exactly.
one more amazing than the other. It's like, it's just,
Exactly.
and
Exactly. One of the treats, I work in book publishing, and one of the treats for me was many years ago going to visit Celia Cruz to talk about, you know, the possibility of doing a book. It never worked out, but it was just such a treat because I'm such a fan of that.
I'll give you a quick story. I'm 21 years old, right? I had never met Celia Cruz. I knew who she was, but I'm already
Uh-huh.
playing professionally. And they called me to accompany her in Toronto. So there was a band in Toronto that was going to accompany her, and the piano player couldn't really handle the Latin stuff or whatever. So they called me and a bass player from New York, Andy Gonzalez. So I get to the airport. I had never met her. I'm 21. I get to the airport and I see her from far, and I go like, "Oh my God, that's Celia." And I'm looking at her and I go, "Wow, she looks old." I'm saying to myself, right? I was 21. She must have been about 51, right? So I go introduce myself. She says, "Ah, mucho gusto, mijito. Sí, bienvenido." I mean, just the most sweetest, incredibly giving person you could imagine.
I
And
lovely
I and then but that night, right? So we do the rehearsal at the and then she, you know, because at the airport she looked meek. She wasn't dressed, you
right,
know,
right, right.
very reserved. So we do the rehearsal that night. We're on the stage. The band's getting ready. They announce us. They announce her. Bam! So she comes out, and I go like, "Oh my God!" I said, "Celia looks fine," you know. And, but then she proceeded to take over the whole audience, she just
Oh,
captivated everybody. I mean, the musicians were on their toes. And then subsequently, I played with her. I traveled with her. I went to Europe with her. She was the most amazing. And even, you know, that time, I didn't see her for 2 or 3 years. The first time she sees me again, "Oh, Calito, ¿qué tal, amiguito?" Uh, it
she's
was
like an old Cuban mom.
Man, I had such incredible times with that lady in terms of her artistry, in terms of talk
Wow.
about passion.
She
She
was a
loved,
force of nature. She was
yeah,
a
exactly,
force of nature.
exactly. And for me, you know what? Those are indelible memories and they were lifelong lessons. I mean, when you're 21 and you see somebody do what she's doing, the way she's doing it, I mean, how could you not give your all? Because she gave her heart.
Oh my God. She
She
left
gave her blood,
everything on
sweat.
the stage.
Yeah, so she was amazing, and uh, really proud that I recorded with her. I got to musical direct for her. I did an event, and you know, at Avery Fisher Hall, where I was the musical director. She said, "Oh, Calito, increíble. Yo quisiera que tú fueras el director musical siempre para mi evento." You know, what I mean, she was so. This one event that we had, but yeah, it was amazing lady, and proud to have her as part of, you know, my history in terms of, things that I've done.
I get the feeling we could spend, a day and a half and we wouldn't even begin to cover all the people we worked with.
Anyway, I'm here. If there's anything you need, if there's anything you missed,
I'll reach out to you, and I thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're super busy and you have this great new music coming out. So I'm hoping we can, do a good job by you.
Well, I appreciate it. And if there's anything you need to make it happen from your end, and you need anything, I'm a phone call away, a text away, an email away. Just let me know. I'm there.
Thank you.
Take care, darling. It was a pleasure. And hope to meet you next time I'm in New York. I'll drop you a line. We were actually talking about things that will be canceled. Part of the big release we were going to do was 4 nights at the Jazz Standard in June. So with some of the guests on the record. So I'm hoping we can reschedule the stuff. And
maybe.
I'll keep you posted. And
I hope so.
if your son has any questions, I'm sure he doesn't need me, but if he has any questions, feel free to have him reach out to me. If I can.
He was gonna pop in and say hello, and I told him stay away. This is my.
¿Cómo se llama él?
Henry.
Henry. All right. Well, tell Henry we'll get to meet one day. Show him my video.
Absolutely. He's been hearing the music. I've been playing it for him.
All right, girl. You take care. God bless you. Ciao.